This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of July 25th, 2022. And I had something else in mind that I was going to do today. And then I read a couple of things on the internet and I decided to change subjects. So the subject for this week is now late night TV. They're dropping like flies. A couple of weeks ago, we got news that Showtime's acclaimed series Desus and Mero had been canceled. And today, just today, several sources, including Deadline and Variety, announced that Samantha Bee's show, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, has also been canceled by TBS and will not air any new episodes. You know, it's hard to say that two shows really constitute a trend, but it's interesting to say, and then, I suppose I should back up for a second. First of all, this is not a political podcast. I'm not going to turn it into one, and I'm also not going to turn it into a social justice podcast. I have my own opinions on those things, and if you share them, great, and if you don't, great. This really isn't that kind of a thing. So while I am going to point out that at the moment, that Desus and Mero was one of the few late night shows with a person of color, and that Full Frontal was one of the last shows with a female person hosting it. Not the only one, because you have the Amber Ruffin show, which is really on Peacock, but it does say there is a diversity thing going on. But I'm not going to go too far into that. I just needed to say it and then get it passed, and because it's really not, like I said, the subject of this particular podcast. But what's happening with late night TV? What's happening is that our tastes are changing, our habits are changing, and I think late night is just now beginning to catch up. Think back many, many years ago, I say, the 1960s, 1970s, late night TV meant one thing, and that was The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Johnny was friendly and jocular, never too controversial, not afraid to make a joke at a politician's expense, but not ever the sort to really dive into the heavy-duty stuff, even during something like Watergate or the Iran-Contra affair, which his show aired during both of those things. It was just lightweight kind of social and entertainment and a lot of stuff that, just before you went to bed, it was just the way to kind of unwind. It was something that couples did together at night. And that was a very, very different time. When Johnny Carson retired, it set in motion sort of a spreading out of late night television, where you started to see, well, Jay Leno was going to be on one network and David Letterman was going to be on another one. Joan Rivers had her own show for a while, so did Arsenio Hall. Neither of those panned out for very long. But that, was the beginning of the end in a lot of ways. But late night continued to flourish really for another 25 years and did not really change a lot until the early 21st century. And it was The Daily Show with Jon Stewart that changed things a little bit. The Daily Show started out as a comedy sketch show, sort of a half-hour expanded version of Weekend Update, and it was Jon Stewart who turned it a little bit more serious to say, okay, we can comment on the news, we can make real meaningful change, and we can also explain how absurd this stuff is. That the two did not need to be mutually exclusive. And The Daily Show was really the model for the upcoming explosion in late night. Of course, Stephen Colbert moved over to CBS, and Samantha Bee and John Oliver took their programs into cable television. And for a while, there were even several other shows that had been announced. And like I said, Desus and Mero had something going on, and there were just so many late night TV shows, and the idea with all of them was very much the same, that we can say how absurd things are in a comedic way and still put a little bit of a point on it. But I feel like, and it's clear, obviously, that other people feel like that's kind of, played. We've all been through a lot in the last decade to 15 years. The world has changed multiple times, and this isn't the kind of podcast to really go into the details of it, but you know what I'm talking about. Things just have not been, things are not the same as they were 15 years ago. They're very, very different in a lot of ways. And so that's important to think about. Why? Because the late night show shtick of, we're going to talk about stuff and we're going to make it funny and yet a little bit absurd. It got harsher and harsher and meaner. And I think, and angrier. And I'm not saying just the shows that have been canceled, but I'm talking about the mainstream network shows too, that over and over again took an increasingly serious tone about world events. And I get it too. I get it if you have this big mouthpiece and you're angry about something and you're saying it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the issue is not that there's something that that it shouldn't be done or these people are not qualified to do it. The fact is that television is a business that runs on ratings, and it is not obviously driving ratings, that it's not what people want literally at the end of the day. And there's important stories to be told, and the people who have been telling them, the late night folks, are good folks, and I think that they have been doing a great job telling those stories, and especially I give a huge amount of credit to those shows, and most of them came on during the pandemic, and just as much as they possibly could, shooting in their own home basements or out in the woods or wherever they felt like they could be safe, using family members as crew. That's incredible to be able to produce network entertainment using just what you have at home and the people that you have to do it with. A huge amount of credit for those folks. And as I said again, a huge amount of credit for saying what they felt needed to be said. And we should congratulate them for that. But getting back to the idea of it being a ratings-driven business, what are people wanting out of late night? The funny thing is, I don't honestly think that it's changed a lot. I think in 1962, what people wanted out of their entertainment just before they went to bed was something that would help clear their palate, calm them down, give them a smile on their face before they went to bed. And increasingly we got away from that, for a lot of good reasons. But increasingly we got away from that. And what do people want in 2022? They want exactly the same thing. And they're just getting it from a different kind of device, a different kind of service. I'd be willing to bet, although I do not have the numbers to back it up, be willing to bet that what people do is watch some sort of streaming before they go to bed, and probably something simple like, cats playing with yarn or some sort of entertainment related segment, something that is just going to calm them down, put a smile on their face before they go to bed. The first thing to think about is that that's going to be something different for everybody. It's going to be a diverse idea. And there's so much available on streaming now that whatever it is that calms you down, whether it's true crime podcasts or children playing or automotive repair, whatever it is, ASMR videos, whatever it is that brings you closer to being able to go to sleep is going to be unique to you, but there's going to be something out there for you. So it doesn't have to be this kind of monolithic entertainment that it was, 60 years ago. The second thing to consider is that for most people anyway, the last thing that they want to see, at night is going to be the idea of, something controversial. In other words, they don't want to see it. They don't want to be all riled up before they go to bed. Now, there's certainly a place to be all riled up, and this is the kind of world where being riled up is probably the right answer for a lot of stuff. But late night news hosts are not necessarily the right vehicle. I think that's what the public is telling them. Anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it anyway, and that's my opinion as to why things are changing in the world of late night TV. Now, I don't know that they are necessarily done changing either. I think that really we're going to probably see a little bit more of a shakeout, and it wouldn't surprise me to see one of the network late night folks, whether it's Jimmy or Steven, decide to move on in a different way as well. I'm not sure who it would be. I guess it would just have to go to ratings or costs or whatever. But I have noticed that, when I do watch more than one late night show, if I DVR them, that a lot of times they're talking about the same things, and that makes it hard to necessarily watch more than one. I just think that the world has changed enough. The way that entertainment happens has changed enough. People used to go on these shows to get exposure. They used to go on these shows to plug their latest project. And that isn't as necessary now as it was then. And the idea that we're going to go ahead and have this, serious political discussion in the middle of the night, that's also not, super duper popular anymore. I don't know what the next thing is that's going to come along, but it's pretty clear that we're at the end of a cycle when it comes to late night, and it's time for a change. Change is not always a bad thing. It's not always a good thing, but it is always a different thing. And whatever we see with late night is going to be vastly different from what we see now. In the meantime, as far as Desus and Miro, as far as Samantha Bee are concerned, I wish them the best. All quality individuals who I'm sure are going to land on their feet and continue to produce quality entertainment going forward. And I hope that I do continue to see it. But at the same time, I'm not so worried, because when it comes down to what I need to go to bed, I just watch dash cam videos. That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast. I hope you have a good one. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment where you can. All those things make me look good to my bosses. And I thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next time.